Imagine trying to navigate a normal disagreement with your romantic partner. You express that your feelings were hurt, but instead of engaging, they coldly tell you that they no longer have the capacity to hold space for you. On the surface, this kind of language sounds incredibly emotionally intelligent, but the reality is that behind this polished vocabulary is a dynamic that takes a vulnerable human moment and reframes it as a sterile bureaucratic process. We have to be clear, the destigmatization of mental health over the last few decades is a massive cultural achievement. Real therapy, practiced by trained professionals, is highly effective, and words like trauma and regulation are life-saving tools to help people navigate their emotions. But something strange happened between the psychologist's office and social media platforms like TikTok. This highly specialized clinical terminology leaked into the general population, and people began using it in everyday conversation. By eagerly adopting this HRI'd language, we trade the raw vulnerability of genuine human connection for the false safety of a corporate memo. Why have we suddenly decided to talk to our friends and lovers like we're diagnosing a patient? Philosophers call the underlying reason epistemic authority. This is the concept that certain types of knowledge carry an inherent objective weight. When you use clinical buzzwords, you borrow the credibility of academic science. You stop expressing a personal opinion and start sounding like you are stating an absolute fact. Think about the difference in phrasing. Saying, "I am upset" is subjective. It leaves room for discussion and compromise. Saying, "I am triggered" sounds definitive. It shuts down the debate entirely. This creates concept creep, where psychological terms expand in meaning until they swallow up milder experiences. Suddenly, a partner defending their perspective gets accused of gaslighting, and an everyday conflict dramatically escalates into a major moral diagnosis. Using this authoritative language doesn't make someone emotionally sophisticated. It turns ordinary friction into a psychological battlefield, trapping the other person in a clinical category and denying them any chance to actually grow. The most frequently weaponized term in modern relationships is the boundary. Instead of being honest about simply not wanting to do something, people use the word as a shield to completely avoid taking personal responsibility. A prime public example occurred a while back with actor Jonah Hill. Leaked texts showed him telling his partner she couldn't surf with certain men or post specific photos, framing these strict demands as his personal boundaries. But a genuine boundary is about managing your own internal reaction to a situation. It is not a tool you use to dictate your partner's external behavior just to make yourself comfortable. When you disguise a controlling preference as a strict mental health necessity, you create a dynamic where any disagreement from your partner is treated as a direct attack on your well-being. This intense focus on self-protection means we default to cutting everyone off rather than doing the messy emotional labor required to maintain a connection. And this refusal to engage feeds directly into the modern loneliness epidemic. We are building a moat around a fortress. By treating any relationship effort as a threat, we use words like capacity as rigid walls instead of flexible guides, eroding our own resilience until we are completely isolated. The deepest irony here is that the clinical language we use to protect our egos accomplishes the exact opposite of what true therapy is actually designed to do. Therapy speak is almost entirely outward-facing. It encourages you to point fingers and project your psychological insights onto everyone else, quickly labeling them as toxic or narcissistic. Real therapy asks you to turn the mirror inward, question your own reactions, and expand your emotional capacity so you can safely let people in. It is not a weapon to claim the moral high ground in an argument. It's a method to understand yourself, to navigate your relationships with true empathy and accountability. The first step to fixing this is simply dropping the script. We must strip away the polished vocabulary and return to authentic, unpolished human language. That means reserving clinical terms for situations of genuine, severe abuse, rather than reaching for them the second we experience everyday relationship friction. When conflicts do arise, the healthiest approach is to focus exclusively on your partner's specific behavior, instead of attacking their character with a sweeping psychological diagnosis. We need to actively translate our bureaucratic shields back into raw honesty. It is much better to simply say, "I am hurt," than to inform someone that they are making you feel unsafe. Human relationships will always be inherently messy, and no one ever said they were easy. But stripping away the armor of therapy speak is the only way we can survive conflict, deepen our intimacy, and build a fully connected life.